we're going to hear from Tinia Pina, who answered a question for us earlier. Tinia is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Renewable, a waste-to-resource company headquartered in Brooklyn, New York. Good morning, Tinia, and welcome to the summit.
Good morning. Thanks, Paul and Peter, for having us here. So my goal is to first explain what Renewable is and what we do and how we see impact, the drivers that really supports Renewable's presence, and also really kind of shed some light on insights from a fellow millennial entrepreneur that we see kind of really resonating with the industry that we operate in, but also in others that are related. So Renewable is an agricultural technology company that uses its organic cycling science approach to decarbonize the global fertilizer supply chain, which contributes to 3% of the total global greenhouse gas emissions. Renewable's water-soluble organic hydroponic nutrient products enable 66 to 82% more profitability than the dominant conventional synthetic fertilizers at equal or lower cost. Renewable closes the agricultural loop for its farms, eliminating 3 tons of CO2 equivalents from the air for every 1 ton of food waste diverted. It sources food waste from local third-party food processors, distributors, and manufacturers. And I want to say that again, processors, distributors, and manufacturers, because we specifically and intentionally don't work with food service, food waste supply, even though there's a huge demand of impact on that side. And a client farm's own on-site production waste to more profitably grow closed loop food. So the key points about Renewable are the following. So our nutrient mix, which we focused on upcycling or reclaiming unrecoverable produce waste from food manufacturers. So for example, we work with Bonduelle located in upstate New York. Their food waste supply is the residual of produce waste that would be normally heading towards or directed to a composting facility or an anaerobic digester. We're able to reclaim it within a 10-mile radius of their operation. So we're shortening or reducing the carbon footprint within their supply chain. And what we're focusing on is, for soilless farms. So there's been a surge in indoor farms, vertical, as well as greenhouses to grow year-round produce without the application of pesticides and herbicides, but also to increase the resource efficiency, not only on the water usage, which can be, there's claims of 90 to 95% less water usage than field-grown produce, but also on the nutrient usage because it can be more targeted and precise. We wanted to make food waste have an impact by being compatible for use in these very sophisticated and precise growing units, but also, to help displace the need for the mineral salts, which are the conventional synthetic fertilizers that I mentioned earlier. We use organic cycling science approach, which just means that we're recirculating nutrient water while nearly eliminating the need for flushing, removing clogging risk, and preventing the buildup of molds, which can all really jeopardize a complete crop harvest for a farm. The consistency of the organic compounds, or more specifically organic nitrate, is really what we focus on. And we try to make sure that it's delivered in a very uniform and consistent format to the plants and to the farm as much as possible. And so the reason why is because typically with organics, whether it's back guano, compost tea, or other organic sources of fertilizer, which can be produced from our own households, they oftentimes need 7 to 10 days to be water soluble to the plant, which just ensures that it's available, that the plant could take it in as a food source. And we've done that within 24 hours. The one other offering that's been a development of ours more recently has been our on-site food waste recovery system. So this is enabling soilless farms to grow closed loop because we're ultimately taking their production waste. So think of their vines and the residual cuttings after packing and harvest, and we're turning it back into a free source of supplementary nutrients that can be used as a biostimulant, but also a free source of potable water. And in areas that you can imagine in California and more water scarce, it's a huge desire, huge need to really kind of show that resiliency. The last thing is organics. We're enabling more organic farms to be able to grow organic certifiably. However, one thing that we definitely want to show by the end of this year, and in the next 1 or 2 months, there's going to be several case studies showing our product's efficacy in multiple system types within the soilless or controlled environment agricultural space that, those farms that wish to grow, continuing their use of conventional fertilizers, can also noticeably witness that we can reduce their usage of fertilizer by 40 to 60%. And you see countries outside of the US really kind of driving for that change. There was an article last week that I saw where the EU rolled out its farm to fork plan in May of this year, including strategies that cut the use of pesticides by 50% and the use of fertilizers by 30%. And this goal is to be met by 2030. So we feel that food waste and creating biostimulants from that food waste is a huge driver to help them meet that goal. And hopefully the US also catches on, because we feel that, consumers are looking for that accountability, as well as corporates throughout their entire supply chain. Lastly is the profitability. We measure profitability in three things in helping these soilless farms be able to market. One is their lowered carbon footprint by the usage of our more reclaimed nutrient source as an alternative to conventional mineral salts. The second thing is the increased nutritional value. So things that we're increasingly adding more investment in is, how are we capturing a better taste, but also increased nutritional content of the produce grown with our nutrient source, our nutrient product. And that's more specifically measuring amino acids, vitamin C, B1, K, for example, and a plethora of phytochemicals and micronutrients that we hope that the market will allow these farms to be able to put a price towards, and really show as increased value as more constituents and more consumers really want to eat according to their dietary guidelines. Lastly, increased ROI is because of that, the additional increased margins by growing within the organic category. However, I do want to reiterate that our product is not limited to organic certified farms. It's also for farms that really want to reduce their synthetic fertilizer usage as well. So those are all the drivers and how Renewable kind of operates and is supported not only by municipal drivers for zero waste into landfills, but also increasing the sustainable agriculture within their local economies and throughout the US. And as I mentioned, EU also driving some other market dynamics there. But there's topics, there's themes that not only millennials, but also just the larger consumers really trying to evaluate any new type of produce or any new type of company that they want to buy and ultimately support. So what is the contribution to their human health? And we try to move that needle for the farms that we work with by showing the increased nutritional value. Lastly is, or not lastly, but a couple other points are, how millennials want to be able to support a cause, and that cause isn't limited by a specific event that's happened nationally, but it's overall a company-backed initiative. And they question the cause, they want to make sure that it's long-standing, and they want to keep accountable that company to that cause and make sure that there are internal protocols and processes and best practices that show that it's not just a claim, it's not just whitewashing or greenwashing, but rather, it's something that's here to stay and it's something that is operating off of. They also question the intention and transparency of those companies and their products. So what we do, and I mentioned on the call earlier, is that we try to show through our life cycle analysis and our assessments, from the source of our raw materials to the usage of our product at our soilless farms, how that's able to lower our entire kind of value chain's carbon footprint, but also really kind of show that we're committed to this, and this is part of our internal kind of network and ethos. Lastly, what does the company do for the greater good? And I really want to reiterate that, because I think, a lot of sometimes impact investment and just the financial economy can look at what are short-term trends. But I think, the community that I kind of represent, just by age or just from the ethos of the company, which is not limited to millennials, but I'll speak on our voice right now, they really want to keep it accountable to everyone, and not just a specific niche, not just a specific consumer or industry, but how is it contributing to the community at large, whether it's in the form of jobs or contributing to nonprofits in some residual way. There's certainly a lot more discussion around that, and people will go to the extent of looking at social media and things that have been reported about the company to really kind of question that. So I think that's really a good stopping point for me perhaps to answer any questions. I do want to mention that we've been supported by NYSERDA. We've definitely taken advantage of NYSERDA's EIR program, and that's how we've hired one of our executives on our team and can really speak to the goals and impact that New York State has provided for us as a New York State funded company.
Well, thank you very much, Tinia. And your first question comes from Brian at Pitmos, whose earlier question you answered. Is your product a full nutrient solution, or do you need to add other fertilizer to get a balanced nutrient package? And he'd like to reach out and speak to you about this as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, great question. Great question. And also congrats on the new Grow NY finalist recognition for your team. Yes, so we do both. It has a representative or full spectrum inclusion of macronutrients, micronutrients, and then what we're trying to evaluate more is also the vitamin and phytochemicals. Oftentimes, it allows for these farms to not have to dose or add or supplement with the micronutrients such as boron, iron, calcium, and magnesium that you see isn't typically in a macronutrient heavy product.
Okay. And Tinia, also a question from Noah McCall. What, if any, are the specific indicators that investors consider from an ESG perspective when considering renewable social enterprises, or is it a more of an analysis for startups? And if so, how is that done?
Yeah, we get questioned as to, and it's more driven by us. What are the metrics that we are keeping accountable to? We haven't been asked, why aren't we evaluating for X, Y, and Z? So to give you some perspective on what we maintain is the number of jobs created, the amount of tonnage of food waste diverted, and the greenhouse gas emissions reduced as a result of that. What is the amount of increased usage of our product at the soilless farms and the lower carbon footprint as a result of that. And that's more at the downstream customer perspective. And I'm forgetting to mention, one other thing is that internally, one thing that's we've been proud to say is as a result of being able to upcycle every ounce of the raw material used, there's no wastewater, there's no byproducts that are being disposed of except for inbound packaging waste that we simply can't process. So I think, those kind of 4 leading metrics have been what have best served us to date, whether it's investors or just other kind of reporting related to ESG.
Okay, and finally, here's another question, Tinia. How much does it cost to keep track of indicators, and how clear is the payoff?
That's a good question. I wish I had a number there for you. I don't. NYSERDA, under the blessing of NYSERDA, we were able to have a life cycle assessment done for us for free. However, in the future, every year we do update that. The cost on that, however, are not really held or approximated yet, because next year will be our first year doing our own.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Tinia, for the presentation and answering those questions.